And so, Bishop, now, one of the areas that you emerged as a leader in was the adjutancy. And I want to talk about that to some great degree, because not only was the title and the office of bishop basically foreign to the Baptist mindset, so was the idea of men serving men, especially alpha males serving alpha males. And I mentioned the names of Bishop Darrell Brister and Bishop Lester Love because, from my view and my perspective, you all invented the office of armor bearing and adjutancy for the Full Gospel Baptist Church Fellowship. You certainly were two of the first to operate in that role and to function in that capacity. Now, the traditional Baptist church always kind of shied away from that because men who served other men were viewed as lackeys or flunkies. And other than the Nation of Islam, which rejected strong men serving other men, we had not seen that. Tell us how that developed there at Greater St. Stephen's, and then how, Bishop, did you and Bishop Brister transfer that into a national office and a national movement so that men, strong alpha males around the country, were rushing to become servants to their leaders locally?
Bishop, mine actually goes back to the fact that he's dead now, but I had a very strong father. My father was the epitome of the alpha male. So I grew up in a home, like many people, even in my age group, where whatever my father said, that just was it. My daddy said this. My daddy said, if I say it's 12 o'clock noon, and you think it's 12 o'clock midnight, and you go outside and there's stars in the sky and the moon is out, he said, fix lunch. As I said, it's 12 o'clock noon. All right? So I grew up in a context, Bishop, where my father taught me how to listen and to be obedient to another man. Okay, that's number one. Number two, I was an armor bearer and an adjutant before we had titles, before we had any of this. I remember we had 7 services on Sunday, and I always noticed that Bishop Morton was running from one to the next and getting a robe together and all of these type things. So what I would do, I would go to 8 o'clock service and get my message so I can hear what the word was. And then as he was closing out the 8 o'clock service, I would go to the back, in and of myself. I would get in and I would lay out his robe, put his change of clothes out, and then go to the next location ahead of him. I would go to the next location while everybody was in church. Nobody even knew this. He didn't even know this. I was laying out his robe, organizing his desk to make sure that things were easy for him. And I did this for years, and nobody. This is when Bishop Brister and I became friends, because he came from a military background and he came from a home with a strong father. He was the one that began to kind of put meat on the bones to help us understand exactly what this is. We end up going to a meeting with Bishop J. Delano Ellis and Bishop Eric Garnes as they were beginning to explain to us exactly what this was, this adjutancy and serving another man, and that it didn't take anything away from you being a man. Now, I don't cast aspersions on anybody, Bishop, but I'm a man's man. I'm a guy. I'm a guy, Bishop. You know what I'm saying? Other people do whatever they want. I ain't talking to anybody. So I had no problem serving somebody else. Bishop Brister taught me how to do it, and he gave me the reason why to do it, how to do it with grace and be tactful and not to be seen and all of the things that you see right now. So everybody that Jesus picked to do a job was already doing the job before they got the job. They were already doing the job. So I was already doing adjutancy before we put titles and positions and all of this on it already. And so it was a very easy transition for us to take this. And today's prophet is yesterday's heretic. And people, they see the adjutancy and they see us right now. But this was like our father. There was no familiarity. The greatest hindrance to the power of God moving in our churches can't be sin. Because if it's just sin, God wouldn't move in any of our churches, because all of us got something we don't want to see on CNN tomorrow. It's because we become too familiar with the person that we're assigned to work with. So as we look to Bishop Morton like a father, it became very easy for us to serve his vision.
And Bishop, one of the things that I want to suggest and maintain is that the servitude that was performed by you and Bishop Brister and even others was not an end all. That was not the destination. That was not the height of your calling, because from there you were elevated. Both Bishop Brister and yourself became bishops yourselves. And in your case, your service led to you becoming the administrator of the Full Gospel Baptist Church Fellowship. I don't know how many people recall or remember that we had a season where you literally led from behind the scenes the very fellowship that we have. Now, you're the general treasurer now. You've been known as a chief armor bearer. But for me, having been there and having watched, one of the greatest contributions that you made to this movement was in the area of administration, because you led us as the official administrator of the Full Gospel Baptist Church Fellowship. Talk to us about how that came about, your mindset, and what you would like to believe was a lasting contribution you made on the fellowship in that particular capacity.
Bishop, I was volunteering at Greater St. Stephen the whole time in the beginning of the first conference. I was working in the automobile business, and I got promoted off my job. I got fired. So I said, what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna go down and volunteer at Greater St. Stephen. I started volunteering and I treated it like a job. I would get up every morning, put a suit and tie on, go down and begin to work. But then, Bishop, my money ran out. And so I said, I'm going back to work. I went to apply for a job in the city to be the #1 finance and insurance manager in the city with a local dealership, okay? They offered me $100,000 to take the job, Bishop. This was back in the early 90s when $100,000 was now probably $300,000. I went to go sign the contract for the job, and something just said, talk to your pastor first. Before I signed the contract, I went and I said, let me make one. So this was a Thursday. And I said, give me the weekend and I'll get back with you. I called Bishop's office. Floretta Grant was the executive assistant then, and said, I need to talk to Bishop Morton. And she said, well, guess what? He wanted to talk to you too. I said, okay, no problem. This is a Friday. I go to the 5th floor corporate headquarters. This is one thing that you have to understand. Whenever you're in the midst of greatness, never talk first.
Good.
Bishop said, you've been faithful, you've been loyal, we're organizing this movement. He said, I see you have great organizational skills. I want you to help and be the conference administrator. He said, I can offer you $24,000. Now, I got $100,000 on the table. He offered me $24,000 a year, and without any hesitancy at all, I said, yes, sir. There's a picture in my office, and I'll send it to you, Bishop, that when a father says something to a son, the only answer is yes, sir. I said, yes, sir. I took the job for $24,000. My wife had to quit her job because she was pregnant and had to be on bed rest when she was actually making more money than me. We went on one income at $24,000 when we were used to making a whole lot more. And it was then I began to organize the conference and invite the speakers. I always had gift of administration according to Romans chapter 12, verses 3-8. Two greatest gifts are administration and service. These two gifts came together. And we began then to organize the conference that you know right now.
Ah,